and then back out in the car at 6:30 this morning. So I had to pull out what I didn't have to iron. So
that's all right. That's
so
all right.
I appreciate the Delta love, and I appreciate all of you all being here this morning. I know that you could be anywhere on a Saturday morning, and like me, I know that you all know that this election is so very important. As Vince shared, I've been all over the country on behalf of the Vice President. And I can just tell you how I got to this point. It was about prayer. And it was about knowing that I know, that I know, that I know, that it's important that we have a good man elected president of the United States. I have 4 kids at home. And during one of my trips to Iowa, it was a couple of days after my father-in-law had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer on the Tuesday. And on Thursday, we lost him.
Lord mercy.
And as I was considering canceling the trip, my husband said, go. And I said, well, I know that the Vice President will understand if I can't get on the road and go. And he said, you understand our republic is at stake. Go. Just this week, I lost my godmother. I had her first chemotherapy treatment on Monday. She had a stroke on Tuesday, another one on Wednesday, and we lost her. And it's with that same heaviness in my heart that I'm here today. She drove my mother to the hospital when she went into labor with me. So you can only imagine how close and near and dear she is to my heart. But what I know is that my father-in-law and my godmother worked each and every day to make sure that life would be better for me and my children and my children's children. And so while I'm here with a heavy heart, I'm here. Because what I know, like so many of you all in this room, you didn't work so hard on behalf of this country for us to give up on America. And what I want is when the President of the United States comes on television, I want to be able to call my children back into the room to see the President. And what I want is for my children to know that the President is an honest person. Yes. And what I want is for my children to look at the President with pride. Yes. And what I know is that I can't do that right now. Because when that man who lives in the White House now gets on television, I have to send my children out because I don't want them to think that it's acceptable to lie. Yes. When I was packing for one of my trips, and this was right after the passing of Elijah Cummings, my 9-year-old daughter gets very anxious when I travel sometimes. And she saw the President on TV and she said, he's not a nice man, is he? And I said, no. I said, but that's why I'm traveling. I'm a person elected president. And she looked at me and she said, Mommy, you should go. And so I'm here today. And when I ran for mayor of Atlanta a couple of years ago, it's funny how the more exhausted you get when you're running, for me anyway, I became the most authentic I've ever been in public. And my mother said by the end of the race, I had told all the family business. And I said, well, what do you think Daddy would think of this? She said, well, it's too late now. You done told him. But the story that I shared when I was running for mayor was one that I had never shared publicly. And very rarely did I talk about it privately. And I talked about my father, whose name was Major Lance. My father was a well-known entertainer in the 1960s. He opened for the Beatles, and Elton John got his start playing behind my dad. And I told the story of what an extraordinary childhood I had. Until one day I came home from school, and there were police officers all throughout our house, raiding our home. What I now know, my dad had an addiction problem, and and my dad had made the decision to sell drugs out of our home. So I went from ballet lessons every Saturday to visiting my dad in prison on weekends across Georgia. And I learned several things. One was that sometimes really good people make bad decisions. But I also was reminded of what my grandmother used to tell me, is that all things work for the good of those who love the Lord. And so when I made the decision to support Vice President Biden, what I shared with him was the work we're doing in Atlanta for criminal justice reform. And I shared with him the impact that it had on me. And that I knew it was important that we have resources in our community for people like my father, good people who had addiction problems. Good people who felt like they didn't have any other choices and options in life. And when I shared this with Vice President Biden, I knew that he understood because his family has faced some of the same challenges. So when he rolled out his criminal justice reform policy, he incorporated a lot of the things that we're doing in Atlanta to help our communities. When we talk about affordable housing in Atlanta and our $1 billion pledge to make sure that everyday working folk can live in our city, when he rolled out his affordable housing plan, he incorporated many of the things that we are doing in Atlanta. And I share this with you because when you think about Vice President Biden, and you think about somebody who's had this long career, you would think he's at the point that he doesn't have to listen anymore. But I'm telling you, he's listening to our care, the care and concerns that we have in our communities, especially our southern communities. The last time he was in Atlanta, we convened a round table of southern mayors to have a conversation with him about what it is we need on the ground. I'm very proud to say, even after leaving that meeting, we picked up a really good mayor named Randall Woodford who decided to endorse the vice president. So what I share with you today, that in this great state of Alabama, know that in Vice President Biden, you have a person who understands and he listens, and it's not just about what he says he will do, it's about what he's already done. People have said he shouldn't talk about the past. And what I say is, would you interview me for a job and I come in, give you my resume, and you take a big mark and scratch off 8 years and tell me not to talk about it? You want to hear what people have done. So I know that people are rolling out a lot of good plans and they look good on paper, but tell me, what have you done for me lately?
That's right.
That's right, Janet, that's right. We all know what life was like under the Obama-Biden administration. Yes. We know at least how proud we felt. What I say to people, it's not lost on me that this was an older white man who was willing to stand behind an African-American man and make sure that he could give him the support that he needed to be successful. I know that he cared about our communities. I know that when I talked with him personally, without cameras around, without an audience, he's told me how Delaware State University, HBCU in Delaware, helped propel him and make him and shape him and mold him into the leader that he is today. What I know about Joe Biden is that I know Joe Biden. Okay. And by that I mean, I don't mean that we talk on the telephone every day and we email and text each other, but when I say I know Joe, I know the work that he's done that's made my children hopeful for a better tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So as we leave South Carolina today, and we need all the prayers, and if y'all got cousins in South Carolina, call them and tell them to go and vote. Know that all eyes are on Super Tuesday, and all eyes will be on the state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. Because as Andre 3000 says, from Outcast, the South's got something to say, and that's all I'm going to say. So what we know is that whatever happens in the South will help determine who will lead our party into the 2020 election. And what I want, and what I know that we need is somebody who can win Wisconsin, who can win Ohio, who can win Michigan, and even as I look out at this room, I know that you flipped a Senate seat that nobody saw. Washington, I know that you'll send a president to Washington, and I believe that will be Joe Biden. All right. With that, I told Vince, I said, I'm going to make some brief remarks. He said, well, don't make them too brief. But I'd like to think one of my talents is to read a room. So I know y'all have other things you want to do on a Saturday, so I'm going to open up for any